All right, everybody, this is Sam Taggart with Can't Knock This, and I have Arent Seever on the call. He is one of the owners of Bulwark Pest Control, and he has a long, rich history that we're going to go over back since forever ago in this. So he's one of the pioneers of pest control and has done phenomenal things since he started. I mean, his best summer was 1,250 personal accounts back in 2002. He had his best day with 31 accounts in a day. He also did 20 Saturdays in a row, over 20 accounts each day. So their company does 37,000 accounts last year and only growing, and it's really cool to see. He's one of the largest pest control companies in the country. So I'm super excited to have you, Arent, and I'm sure we're going to learn a ton from you in this little podcast.
Thanks for having me, Sam. Glad to be on.
Cool. So tell us a little bit about your story, kind of how you got into door-to-door and kind of the journey since. What was the first year you started? Yeah, it's forever ago.
Yeah, so actually back in 1995, my two brothers, Adam and Dan, started working for Eclipse back in the day. You know, back then it was just really Eclipse and SalesNet that were doing everything, and I couldn't. They had told me about it, but I couldn't go that first year because I had kids, and it just sounded like, you know, something crazy. You know, go sell pest control door to door and make all kinds of money. And so they went, and obviously they did really well. They both sold about 300 accounts. And so I was working at the airlines, and I'm making $6 an hour, 2 kids, going to school full time. And so I was basically just like, you know, if they can make 30 grand in the summer, I know I can make at least that because I'm the older brother. And so then the next year, which would be 96, that's when I headed out. I took my last $1,000, quit my job with medical benefits, drove my family all the way out to Charlotte, North Carolina, and that's where it all started.
How did you convince your wife? I know a lot of people struggle with the whole, like, wait, you're going to leave, like, a good job, and you know, we got kids, and what if you suck? And I'm sure there was that conversation. Like, what was your wife saying?
Well, first of all, it wasn't a good job. It was just one that just kind of got us by.
Oh, okay.
And so she wasn't super tied to the job, but she saw how much my brothers made, and you know, we were definitely nervous. I mean, I remember being terrified as I drive across the country going, geez, I hope this works out, you know.
But I'm sure you also had the mentality of like, well, if my little brothers could do this, I'm sure I could be better than they are.
Oh, that's such a big thing because me and my brothers have always been super, super competitive, and whether I can beat them in something or not, I always feel like I can, if you know what I mean.
But there's something to say. I'm sure it's motivated you. You know, now you guys have formulated your roles in the company. It sounds like you're more on the sales side and they're kind of on the operations side. But I'm sure throughout the years it's always kind of been like, shoot, I need to pull my weight. I'm competitive. I want to beat them. I want to, you know, show them I'm good.
Yeah, we always had this really good dynamic where we're working our guts out to beat each other. But at the same time, anytime we found out something cool that worked really well on the doors or in a different situation, we would immediately share it because we want to beat each other when the other guy has all the same info, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. No, that's cool. And your brothers have done over 1,000 as well, correct?
Yeah, all three of us have done over 1,000, you know, multiple summers. And once we started breaking 1,000, we never went back under in the summer. But then gradually as the company grew, you know, when we first started, we didn't even hire salespeople. We just did all the sales ourselves. In those first 2 years between the three of us, we put on about 7,000 accounts.
Holy cow.
And just instant company, if you know what I mean. And then slowly we started hiring people, and Adam started drifting over to the operations side. And then eventually went fully to that, and then I was doing sales more and more, and Dan drifted to the operations side kind of over a longer time horizon.
Cool. No, it sounds like your parents could probably be proud of their children at this point. They're like, wow, Got some ballers in the family. That's awesome.
Yeah, and we actually brought my dad into the company. He had been an accountant controller for a nonprofit organization in California for about 30 years. And so that really gave us a sound financial mind to help build systems.
So not just a sales guy, because how many people do you know that go start a sales company and they're like, I'm going to go be a bad A dealer or pest control or whatever, and then they realize their skills are sales, not probably managing accounting, budget systems, like, you know.
Yeah.
You probably.
Although I do have an accounting degree and Adam has a finance degree, but yeah, our dad was an accountant and the sales gene kind of skipped a generation. Our grandpa, his dad, had a real estate business in California, so he was a sales guy. But our dad is not so much of a sales guy, more of a deep thinker and building systems and that kind of thing.
So why do this? Like, what's your bigger purpose? I'm sure you've kind of adapted different whys throughout the years depending on your situation, but like, if you had to say today, like, what gets you out of bed and like what motivates you to keep growing and cranking? Because I'm sure you guys could all retire. I'm sure you've made millions, and so what keeps you going? Like, why?
For me, it's the mentoring process. I love to you have a guy come in to your company, and he really has only ever made minimum wage or something very close to it. He has no earning capacity, and over time and through hard work on his part and regular coaching, see that guy transform into someone who can, you know, fully provide for himself and really turn himself into something very productive and have control over his finances and over his life. And so I really enjoy the mentoring process. And so with the sales program, I do weekly Skype sessions with our different teams. And then with all of our experienced reps and team leaders, I do one-on-one coaching sessions. And so I think that's the biggest thing. And it's just fun to build something, you know. It seems like 4 lifetimes ago when we started Bulwark, but looking at what it is now and, you know, when we were just starting out and selling my first Bulwark customer and telling them we're treating all the homes around them, obviously I figured we would be, but it's kind of come a long way. So
that's cool. No, that's awesome. And we're going to get a little bit into later on. We're going to dive into the coaching and the mentorship piece that you do and figure out what's been effective and not. But let's kind of still dive into you a little bit. Like, who coaches you? Who's your mentor? Who's somebody that you have aspired to be like or looked up to, or books, or
so you know, I've definitely learned a lot of things over the years from my brothers, and I think they have from me. And so there's kind of a lot of shared knowledge there, but I love to read, and a lot of over the years I've read a ton of self-help type stuff and the psychology of success type of stuff. And you know, I think the first one that I started getting into probably 15 years ago was Tony Robbins, and I saw his Get the Edge program, and you know, he's a little bit you know, that high over the top energy, and so sometimes that was a little off-putting to me, but there's something about what he was saying that was kind of catching my interest, and so I started to get his stuff, and he had read over, I heard in one of his programs that he had read over 700 self-help books, and so that really kind of got me into that line of thinking. And as I was traveling, I'd be listening to audiobook after audiobook after audiobook.
So what's a few that maybe really stand out to you that you're like, man, if I had to recommend 1 or 2 books to any sales guy, what would they be?
So interestingly enough, they would not be sales books, but they're very good for sales. The first 2 that come to mind would be Wooden, A Lifetime of Observations on and Off the Court. Coach John Wooden was widely accepted as the best coach of any sport at any level, won 11 championships in 13 years, but he never really talked about winning. He talked about the fundamentals, and that's kind of the way I coach people with sales is we don't really focus on the numbers. The numbers come when you do the right things. And so I really relate to that book. And then another one that's really good is The Power of Full Engagement. And it's really about human performance and how it's best when we're fully engaged with what we're doing and then fully unengaged for recovery.
I like that. I like both those. I've never actually heard of both of those books. I've never heard of, so I might have to just Barnes and Noble this up. So, oh, cool. I'm always down. I literally went to Barnes and Noble on Saturday night as a date night, thinking, oh, let's just kind of dink around, honey, and I walk away spending $250 for books, and I was like, oh man, there's so much good stuff in here. So
I used to on trips when I got like 2-3 hours to kill before it's time to go to the airport. I don't want to go sit in the airport for 3 hours, so a lot of times I would just go to Barnes and Noble, and I would just walk through till a book grabbed me, and then I would thumb through it, and if it continued to grab me, then I would leave with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I really had kind of a 2-year span where I had a Barnes and Noble education, where I would just go not knowing what book I was going to leave with, just knowing I'm going to find one, and that was cool.
So kind of going back to the fundamentals, what do you think are the fundamentals? When you coach somebody and you're like, hey, I'm going to wooden you, in a sense, and, what are the fundamentals of success in door-to-door?
So that's what I like about the Wooden book, because I think the stuff he's teaching apply to anything and really apply to sales. But what I teach people is, we call it at Bulwark, we call it work the mode. It's kind of a little phrase that I came up with because I can just ask people, are you working the mode? And if they've had training with me over time, they know what that means and they can fess up to it or not. But that's the most important thing. And working the mode is making everything as structured as it can be. Your start time, your end time, the length of your lunch, being fully engaged on each door with the person you're talking to, the things you can control, and then not worrying about anything you can't control, letting the results take care of themselves, having a faith that it's going to work out and work out well, and just knowing that it will, and not worrying about it. And because what I've noticed over 20 years is the thing that kills more sales reps than anything else is lack of control of their emotions. They go through these huge emotional swings, top of the world, I did this. And then 2 days later, they're like, oh, these houses, they look so mean, they look so scary. I don't want to get out of my car. And it's like, and if you can get away from all that and just control what you can control, your start time, how many people you're talking to in a day. And that to me, I've seen all different personality types do really well in sales, but I haven't seen anybody do really well in sales without doing that.
So work the mode. I like that.
Work the mode. Yeah.
Cool. So what do you do different? Like, everybody in door-to-door has similar habits, things like that. Like, what do you believe or do that you think maybe everybody else will think insane? That's maybe different, that stands out.
I think there's a lot of overlap with what a lot of different people are doing, because you're doing one kind of a thing. But I think if I was to put my finger on it, I would say that I go into almost like a bubble. It's almost like you're leaving the regular world and you're going into this bubble, because you have to really fixate and devote every resource you have in your mind and everything else into the interaction that you're in, each and every one, because milliseconds matter on the door. The right answer, a half a second late or a quarter second late, might not be the right answer anymore.
Yeah, no, and there's something to say to that, because I think a lot of reps sometimes are in the clouds when they knock. You know what I mean? They're kind of like,
yeah,
they're just thinking about who knows what, and then all of a sudden the customer answers, and then they're like, oh, yeah, we're doing this, and then like, they just kind of are going through the motion, but their head's somewhere else, I feel like.
yeah, they're doing the work, they're walking door to door, but they're stopping short of just being fully present and in it every second of every interaction. And so if you're like in your head thinking about, oh man, I'm doing so bad, I should have more sales, or you're thinking, oh, what color are we going to paint the kitchen when we get home? You're not connected to the person in front of you if you're thinking about something else. You're somewhere else, and so how can you really expect to consistently influence a lot of people if you're not fully engaged with each one that you're talking to?
So let me ask you this: what was some of the big hardships or failures you've kind of encountered over the last 20 years in door to door that threw you off guard and rattled you, or or some low moments of life? Or
yeah, so interestingly enough, most of my hardest days on the doors were right after the day after my biggest days. And when I say hard days, it doesn't necessarily mean I didn't get a good number of sales. It just means I was struggling mentally those days. And I think I would get my feet off the ground a little bit when I'd have a really big day and I let myself get a little too proud of myself. And then the next day you kind of get humbled. You stop doing, maybe I stopped doing the little things that created the huge day because I was, building myself up too much and just losing touch with what really gets the sale, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And so I had a lot of things like that. We also had, Adam called a meeting about 2 months into when we started the company, and he said to me and Dan, and he said, we each need to bring in $1,000 a day in initials for the next 30 days, or there will be no more Bulwark, And that was, you would think it would be terrifying to hear that, but it actually, even though it was a scary moment, I got excited inside, and it just really honed my focus. And I think 18 or 19 days in, we had raised the amount that he was saying we need to raise over 30 days. And so, but there's a lot of sweating moments in the early days of well, if we wait till Friday to pay for the chemical, then this and that, and when you're starting up a company, there's just a million things you could spend money on, but you got to really boil it down to what things you have to spend money on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, and that kind of leads me into my next question. It's like, how do you manage your day as one of the owners of a pest control company that does 37,000 accounts and hundreds of reps, and you know what I mean? Like it goes down to prioritization, not from a financial only, but also from how do you know what's most important as your job? Yeah,
so we have a lot more than 37,000 accounts. That's how many we put on last year.
Just last year, yeah. I mean, you got how many active accounts do you think you have right now?
Offhand, I don't know. I know it's over 100,000. I'm not sure the exact number because I really just kind of like that book, the book that I talked about, The Powerful Engagement. I really just trust my brothers to do the operation stuff, and I really just dial my focus in on helping the guys that are knocking for it succeed. But my day, what I've found is I work from my phone, so I might be working at home. I'm in a hotel room right now. I might be working from an airport by texting if it's too loud to talk. Or I might just be checking emails. So I have work that has to get done. A lot of it is not specific to a time if it's not like a coaching session. It could be done whenever. But I find that if right when I get up, I check my emails And I do that, and I put in a good 2 hours of just, right off the bat, just knocking out the stuff that I don't want to do, the grind stuff.
And what's crazy though, yeah, like when you just get that off your plate and you're like, I'm not postponing it, I'm not like, procrastinating this, I know I need to get to those stupid emails, and then all of a sudden the end of the day after you've been grinding, you're like, I don't want to do these, and the day would suck. Like, there's something, as you said, it's just like, knock it all out and free.
Yeah, it's almost like if I put that stuff off, it puts me into a whole different mindset where I'm not in control of things and getting that done. And I have to kind of give that program, that first self-improvement program, I got a little credit for this because he said something to the effect of procrastinating is not putting off a decision, it's deciding to fail. It was something along those lines. It's not an exact quote, but it really resonated with me in the sense that, like, you're not putting it off, you're deciding to fail. And really it just starts each day off right. And then the more creative stuff, which I think for high human performance, you really need to use your artistic side, your creative side, and that's freed up once you're done with all the kind of stuff you don't want to do, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. No, that's cool. So as an owner, it's so funny because we run into, bigger corporations or little ones even with, like, let's say 30 guys or 100 guys. I found a lot of people when they move up into upper management, they get this feeling of like, I don't need to knock anymore. I don't need to train my man. Like, I don't need to travel. I just want to, like, deal with, like, the busy work kind of behind the scenes. And I think it's kind of admirable that you still, to this day, are on a coaching call and on, boots on the ground with a lot of your key guys, it sounds like. So let's kind of roll into, how do you mentor? A big piece of what you do is mentor, develop, and help your main guys. Like, how do you do that? Like, what's your system? And then we'll go into a little bit more of, like, what's the context.
Yeah, so basically we have we're not structured exactly like a lot of the door knocking companies, in the sense that we don't necessarily have a full team in every one of our markets. Some of our markets, we just have a couple of really good salesmen, and then other markets will have a team that would very closely resemble what someone's used to in this industry. We're kind of a blend. So the guys, the experienced reps and the team leaders, I encourage them to text me about once a week, and we set up a short 5 to 15 minute coaching session. And really the goal here is to keep them growing, because it's going to trickle down to the guys that they're training. It's going to filter through what they're doing and everything. And we just focus on one thing each time. They might have something that they're really struggling with, a certain kind of neighborhood, a certain kind of situation, and we'll just deal with that. And then I find out what they're doing. I'll ask them a bunch of questions, and then I'll tell them why I think they're having a little trouble in that area and what I would do to change it. Basically, if I was in that situation, how I would adjust to that, to what you're running into. Then about once a week, with the areas where we have teams, I do a Skype session, kind of, because you got a lot of first-year guys and rookies, and really they don't need the more advanced dialed-in stuff. They need to build a fundamental base. And so what we're doing is, with the teams, developing new high-level guys for the next year, and then those guys start to get the one-on-one coaching once they kind of get to a level where it would really, the cost benefit with my time starts to pay off, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, but I mean, you could touch a lot of people when you keep them 5 to 15 minutes. I think where people get bogged down is they think a one-on-one needs to be an hour and a half, and they're like talking about who knows what and building the relationship. But I mean, the concept
it's really interesting you say that, because in my experience, it's bad to do an hour or more of coaching in a one-on-one setting. I used to do that because, sometimes we can get proud of hearing ourselves talk, and the guy's eating it up. Oh, that's awesome. I can't wait to try that. And you can give people too much, and then it's kind of like this soup in their brain, and they don't know where everything fits anymore. And, in my early days of of coaching people, I had some times where I set some people back for 2 days or a week because we covered too much ground. They don't know. Yeah, it complicated it. And sales is a very simple thing, and you need to keep it simple at all times.
Yeah, so it's like just the concept, like, hey, here's one little short nugget, and it's kind of like, and I remember when we were talking earlier, and this kind of hit me. You're like, don't even apply it. It's just in there. Go work, and it'll come out, right? You're just like,
yeah, exactly.
You're like, I don't even want you to change what you're doing. You're not doing anything bad, but it'll come out. Just sit on it.
Yeah. You're not as good as you think you are on your good days. You're not as bad as you think you are on your bad days. You're somewhere in between. And and that's really a big thing with me is I really tell people, don't even try to apply it, just like you said, because that gets people thinking, and thinking is too slow for the doors. It's like if you're thinking about what to say and how to use it, then you're not connected and engaged with the person that you're talking to.
100%. So what's crazy for those listening to this podcast is his average veteran does over 350 accounts per year. And so to have the averages and just to put a result and an outcome of what you've done, with your vets and good reps and management, not only have all the owners done over 1,000 accounts consistently, and, just this one-on-one time, it shows your results obviously are phenomenal. So that's really cool. So moving kind of into results, you kind of, Bulwark is in a weird spot. You guys have never had any kind of transaction, right? Most of the pest control kind of this buy, hold some accounts, sell them off. Buy, hold some accounts, sell them off, right?
Yeah, exactly. We have basically a belief that we want to have an elite service, on the operation side, a truly elite service, and so for that we feel like you've got to keep your people a long time, and they get better and better, and they're more and more vested, and so Adam really gets the credit. My brother Adam really gets the credit in this. He's constructed a system that really causes our technicians and our operations people and our managers over there and our service center people on the phones to stay a long time and to do these as a career. And he calls it pounds of gray matter. A lot of companies are structured to where there's one or two minds at the top basically making all the decisions for the company. Well, if you can get hundreds of people involved in those decisions and all with the same goal, it just creates a dynamic. And so we haven't ever sold branches or anything because it's going to change the way your people feel that are in your system. At least that's what we believe. And we think that's a big part of having an elite service is by making people feel like, okay, I can, and when I'm talking about this, I am talking about salespeople, but it's more so the operation side with this kind of thing. People feel like I can grow roots here. I can buy a house in a school district where I want my kids to go to school, and I can just do this for long term. And when you get people like that committed to making sure it works on the ground, they'll do more for you than even the most charismatic guy can talk people that are short-term into doing, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and also that obviously reflects from a customer base because you guys have a 91% mature retention rate over 1 year, which the industry norm, it sounds like it's around 70. So it's crazy because it's not only reflecting from a retention on an employment, but I'm sure that has a huge effect on your retention from a customer and customer service, right?
Yeah, exactly. We grow just from retaining our customers and getting referrals from others. So everything we do with marketing and everything we do with door-to-door is a bonus. And so it creates a feel in the company like we're all on the same boat together, you know, and we're all building this for the long haul.
So you guys did 20,000 accounts from referrals last year. So and that to most is insane. More accounts from referrals than you did from door to door. So what's the secret? What's like how do you get that?
Yeah, so the way you get that, my personal belief is that it takes a technician 2 years to get really, really good at his job, you know, to where he really knows, if I don't do this, it'll be a callback. If I do this nice little thing for my customer, they'll send me one of their friends. And, you know, it really, I think, takes a couple of years for them to really get dialed in. And so I think the way you do that is by keeping your operations people around. And, you know, when I travel to the offices, I mean, I'm seeing guys on the operations side that I saw 15 years ago when I went to that office, you know. Wow. And I think really you start to develop an operations culture when you have people a long time, because you're not continually re-educating a new crop of people.
Yeah.
You're always going to have new people, especially if you're growing, but you're not spending all of your time doing that because most people are staying.
So do you train your technicians to get referrals? Like when they go back and spray, like do they ask for referrals or?
Dan, what he does for the company is teaches the techs how to sell, and he does coaching. But a lot of times, you know, people walk up to technicians, and most companies don't sell these guys, you know, walk up, because most techs will be like, oh, just call the number, you know. And it's because it's normal for someone who would be interested in a tech type of job to not really want
think to sell. Yeah, they're almost like, oh, I get nervous selling and I don't want to push anything and that's not my thing. And that's interesting, leveraging the techs.
Yeah, and so that's what Dan does is he really teaches them how to sell people that come up to them and that kind of thing. And he also trains people how to save accounts in our support center. So
do you have, like, do the technicians get the same kind of commission as a rep, or like, I mean?
No, their system is different, but it's you know, they can make a really good amount by getting a sale. So
cool.
But if you just say you're going to pay your techs this amount of money, it won't be that motivating. You really, you know, I think what really makes it go is the fact that Dan is there and knows every single tech, and, you know, these techs know an owner of the company, and they can call him or text him with questions, that kind of thing, and they feel invested in that. If you know what I mean.
I love, like, I almost just want to, like, come to Phoenix and meet your office. It sounds like everybody's like a family, like they've just been around forever, and, you know, that's cool. And just texting the owners and being like, hey, how's it going? And that's really cool. So let's kind of, like, last thing I really wanted to talk about was really kind of how, like, the door side, like more so the selling, and, you know, I know there's a few things that some people don't like to tell and some that they're okay. But like, from your point, what have you found in pest control has been some really helpful things that, you know, if you're a pest control rep listening to this, like, has made you do 1,250 accounts? I think that's the most so far I've interviewed that I've heard. So, I mean, that's a lot of freaking accounts in 1 year. But, like, what advice would you give some pest control guy? Or
interestingly enough, the advice I would give is to not try to sell a certain number. So the year that I did 1250, I wasn't like, I got to get to 1250. I was just talking to the person in front of me and just dialed into them. The numbers take care of themselves if you work the right way.
Makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, I think that like a lot of people almost psych themselves out by focusing on the numbers.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, if you're shooting for 5 today and you got your heart set on getting 5 today, you don't really control whether you get 5 today. And so you're setting a goal that you don't have control over. It's kind of a luck goal. You know, if you get behind it and, you know, at 6 p.m. you don't have any sales yet, all of a sudden you're trying too hard on every door. You know, you're
needy.
pushing,
yeah.
you're being needy and you're taking risks that aren't calculated risks, you know, and that the numbers don't really work in your favor. You're doing Hail Marys and long shots to try to get something to fall, you know, and then, you know, maybe you're doing everything right and you just haven't come across anybody yet today that your skill set is able to close, because it is a numbers game. It never stops being a numbers game. In fact, one thing that I would tell people, big realization I had my second year, because, you know, I sold 420 in 3 months my first year, and, you know, back in 96, no one was doing that, you know what I mean? And so I took to it right away, but I felt like I was just getting lucky, and like the luck is going to run out at any point in time. And I didn't realize till halfway through my second year that I was trying to change the nature of the job. The job will always feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
I needed to change my goal from changing the nature of the job, and I kind of had a goal of having it not feel that way anymore, and change my goal to being okay with it feeling that way, and in the end being grateful that the job feels that way, because that's what creates the extreme economic value, is you're doing something that regular society doesn't want to do.
Okay, anybody listening to this, nugget of the day, like, that's deep. I mean, and I guess I've never had it said that way, but that makes total sense, because we just need to almost be grateful that that's the, you know, everybody gets those butterflies going out in the door saying, I hope I get something today, you know, and that was like always the mindset instead of like, no, like, duh, that's like what makes this job exciting. Like, I can go make something happen today, and I just do the fundamentals and, you know, focus on the people, and people will buy, you know, over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, if the job was mentally easy, we could just put out an ad, pay about minimum wage, and people would line up, and you would just hire people. There'd be no possibility of making big money. It's the fact that the job is mentally difficult and taxing, and then it's an added bonus that doing something mentally difficult and taxing over an extended period of time transforms you into a much better person.
100%. Okay, so I think we end on that. Like, I'm gonna go into the lightning round, which I have this fun little game. It's called the Game of Things, and we're gonna play it. And I've got 6 cards right here. I'm gonna ask you these random questions that will have no meaning, but it'll just be the first thing that comes to your mind. Before I go into that, I just want to thank you for all of your time you spend. I mean, obviously you've got company to run and customers and headaches. I really do appreciate this time, and I'm excited in January to meet you in person at Door to Door Con.
Yeah.
Yeah, and hopefully we can.
Forward to that. That's gonna be fun.
I want to see Arent in the sell-off in just like head to head, like against some of the other guys. Like this will be interesting to see Mr. Arent's skills at its finest. So yeah, let's dive into this. It's random. So things you shouldn't say by text.
Anything you feel emotional about.
That's a good point. Things about Superman that make Batman jealous.
Laser vision.
Things monsters do in your closet while waiting to scare you.
Oh, thumb wrestle.
Things you would like to ask Siri.
Oh, wow. why she never understands me.
She's so complicated.
She never understands me.
Things that are not fair.
What did you say? Games that are not fair?
Things that aren't fair.
Oh, things that aren't fair. That's a tough one. I'm a little stumped on that one. Things that aren't fair. I've always heard that life isn't fair.
Life. I love that. Just life. Life's not fair. Just deal with it.
You might not have got a fair hand, but it's still your hand.
It's life. Yep. Play your hand. I like that. Things that tire you out.
Allowing my emotions to control me really is the thing that probably tires me out more than anything else.
I like that. Well, I appreciate your time again, and I hope everybody listening to this podcast would share this and tag their friends that are in pest or any industry and any business owners that want to one day become some entrepreneur guy like